Good morning, everyone. Second seminar. Today we will be talking about the environment. It's a pleasure for us to greet you. My name is François Chavenet. I'll be the moderator today. And we will be having a very great panel composed of Jean Villers, Christine, Philippe, Gregor, and unfortunately, Paul had a personal matter today and will not be able to attend. Christine will be taking over part of his presentation. Now, Pascal, can you show the agenda of the day, please?
Can you see it?
No, not yet.
And now? Can you see it, François?
Yes, we can.
Very small. Okay, so we will start the presentation with Jean Villers talking about agriculture, agroecology, livelihood. Then we will have Dr. Gregor Hudson talk about water and marine life. Philippe Bayard will follow with environment endeavors, financing and preservation. Marie-Christine, as I said before, will be presiding over waste management and also part of Paul Altidor's presentation about urbanism. We will be taking the questions in the chat in order to avoid confusion, and we can regroup the questions. And then at the end of the session, we will make summaries either at each presentation or at the end of the session. Now, can we start the presentations, Pascal? Can I have the ability to share my screen? Okay, it is my pleasure to welcome you to this series of seminars. As you know, we have 6 webinars prepared. One of them already took place, which was on social change. The environment is today's seminar's subject. Business and economy will follow, then education, health, and then finally cultural sector. The purpose of these webinars, just as a reminder, is to create space for sharing our vision, to initiate dialogue, initiatives, raise awareness, and building pathways that bridge local leaders, diaspora communities, and international stakeholders. These are the panelists that were at the last session. Having issues. Can you see me?
Yes.
Okay, it seems that I'm kind of lost my position here. Some technical issues. Let me see. Can you see the screen, please?
Yes.
Okay. Oh,
Yes.
so this was the first session, so which had a very nice outcome and nice feedbacks. Today is about the environment, and the panelists have been just presented. This is a reminder of the global context. The environment issue is something that is a worldwide concern. And big issues like deforestation, global warming, loss of biodiversity, overfishing, even pandemics resulting from imbalances in nature constitute the table. Haiti is not alone and has its share of these environmental issues. Different names are
Hello, everyone. Can you hear Francois?
No, we are unable to hear him.
Yes,
No.
okay. I wanted to point out that Francois is talking from Jérémy, a region that was hit by the earthquake. So bear with us. He's talking from Jérémy. After a few minutes, we'll manage, but it's not something that we wanted to happen. Yeah. Okay. Okay, hello, everybody. We don't want to hijack anybody, but I think that it's wise. Francois, can you hear us?
yes, now sorry, but we have
Okay, so you may continue. I was about to
Okay.
introduce Jean Villemont,
sorry about
Jean
the
Villemont Hilaire.
so sorry, so I'll be quick in constructions. Okay, can you see the screen, please?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay. I wanted to make a quick reminder of the geographical location of Haiti. First of all, which makes it heir to 14 major forts across Hispaniola. The two major ones are illustrated by the red lines. Also, we are on the natural route of cyclones. As you can see, from Africa to America, Haiti is exposed. Haiti is exposed, and the recent events, the earthquake of August 14 and the passage of grace, are very brutal reminders of this reality. This double event reinforces our position in search for solutions adapted to this strong, irremediable So am I back?
Yes.
Sorry. Okay, so how to better educate our population and support them so that they know which areas are prohibited for construction? What mechanisms to put in place for the protection of natural resources in the long term? How so we equip the peasants so they don't have to break their backs to make a living? What transportation system is best fit for our 80% mountainous country? How can nowadays technology contribute in reversing the existing paradigms? There is a chance for us now, as all political elected posts are empty, to go toward new public policies that will aim promotion of the territory in order to attract international investors, pushing innovation among young people based on scientific research on local materials, improved health, creation of new jobs tied to the environment. With what human capital then do we do that? Local elected officials of a new generation and mentality. Universities and professional schools with diversified and adapted curriculum, and a diaspora engaged in a win-win partnership. Expected results: remodeling of the local governance, strong implication of civil society, industries, and universities with a backup of multilateral institutions implicated, and a new economy in place. So this will be my introduction for the panelists, and I will leave the floor right now to Jean Villemont-Hilaire for his presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Francois. Pascal, can you let me share my screen?
Yes, I think you may. I think it's
Okay,
tried.
yes, yes. Thank you, Francois. Good morning, everyone. So, thank you for the invitation to share some of my experiences in the sector of environment in Haiti. I can tell you my English speaking is not very good, so maybe I will use some French word or Creole word to better understand. And the presentation is in English, so you can read everything that I will tell you. So the question is, to sustain the question from Francois, is how environment can contribute to a theory of change for Haiti. The first things, how can you build this theory? The first things, we need a vision, and to do this vision, leadership as the key factor. And then, as you know, we have some political problem in Haiti, some leadership problem, governance problem. So the key factor to have this vision, to share eventually this vision, a collective vision, we need to have good leadership, people in the good place, and then people that can take the lead to define this vision. Linking to this vision, we need also long-term objective, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. It's very important to define the time frame and the long-term objective that linking with that vision, because the long-term objective can give us the possibility to define what could be the intermediary step that we need to realize the vision. And then in manner more specific, we need to have a systemic approach. The approach more systemic that we have is a linking all reflection strategic to the sustainable development strategy, linking social, environmental, economic aspect. The first webinar, the people say about social change in Haiti. Today we are speaking about environmental change. That's why I include a systemic manner to see the environment into the social and economic aspect for Haiti, linking to some challenges and the opportunities to do something. For the sectorial aspect, because leaders must to define vision as a general objective and strategic objective, but the operational aspect is for the responsibilities of sectors like political sectors, services like health, economic and cultural. And then each sector needs to define programs, specific programs linking to the long-term objective. And all there's activities to define a theory of change for Haiti need to have some values like social justice, like use of some strategic tools like technology, modern technology, fintech, the technology for finance, and also have in the main serve the majority. We can divide the major problems in Haiti, environmental problem in Haiti, and four focuses. The first one is the occupation of space. Today, the human population is estimated to more than 57%. That is different before 2010, before the first earthquake, where the rural population was more than the urban population. The management of the earthquake caused migration from the rural area to the urban area. Today, the metropolitan area have more than 3.4 million people. Human habitat are found is non-edificant area like rivers, bank, ravines, inside, etc. We assist during the last 20 years in a change of land use and land vocation. We have the more specific example is La Plaine du Cul-de-Sac, that was a sugarcane plantation 14 years ago, 40 years ago. Today, we assist with the transformation of the Plaine Lecaille and Plaine de Torbec. Also, that was a rice plantation and sugarcane plantation, tobacco plantation, etc. So the consequences of these problem is migration, food insecurity. Today, more than 4.5 million of Haitians are in the level 3 of insecurity, food insecurity. We assist to the gangsterization of the urban area. As you know, the people cannot take the road of Matissan to go to the south. And then The second things is solid and liquid waste. Christine gonna speak about the specific aspect in this webinar. So we can say three more important things. The whole Haitian territory today shows the stigma of the lack of an effective waste management system. More than half of the waste goes into rivers to finish in the sea. Citizen behavior is inadequate. When we talk about the inadequate behavior of the citizen, is the people can take something, show it to the street without control, etc. So the consequences is public health. In Haiti, if you take the data from the population health, you can see respiratory, sky and gastric disease, water and sanitation. The seven source of water, drinking water in Port-au-Prince is all polluted. And DINEPA is using chlor to treat this water to serve the population. So you know the possible of an intoxication linking to the using chlor and for to do a drinking water. The first thing is forest cover and biodiversity loss. To introduce, we need to remember that Haitian territory is one of the most important areas for biodiversity in the world because we are in as a conservation international call a hotspot of biodiversity in the Caribbean. And then the Massif de la Haute, the area of Macaya, the area where we have the earthquake last week is one of the most important, is the most important area in biodiversity in the Caribbean island, because in this area you can have more the most number of species by meter. And also around 35% endemism in the flora of the Haitian flora, and some animal group we have 100%. Around 3% of annual forests. Now we have around 3% of natural forests, and between 17 and 21 agroforestry. So it's represent, the total represent around 20% tree land cover. About this data, we have a lack of investigation, good investigation to define what exactly the surface, the superficie of a land cover area in Haiti, natural land cover in Haiti. Some species are become very rare and probably new to extent. We don't have data to establish the current distribution of specific umbrella species like we can call it. We can't say that all those species are to be extinct or to be etc. The other problem is the overexploitation, overfishing, excessive cutting, extraction for medicinal use, etc. We know the problem of charcoal that cause destruction and alteration of ecosystem and habitats, agriculture practices like burning forest fires, pollution, etc. Consequences. Today, all ecosystem services in Haiti are declining. We have water problems, we have erosion, soil loss, etc. That decrease the community resilience and increase also the climate change impact and poverty. Poverty that we can associate with political instability. The first thing is the climate change impact in Haiti. Today, climate change and political instability are the major causes of poverty in Haiti. 96% of the population in Haiti is exposed to climate change shock. The losses linking to the climate change effect will be over 10 billion for the last decade. Example, the Matthew hurricane in 2016 caused a loss in damage estimated at 32% of GDP of 2016. Consequences: agriculture lost, food security, decrease in investment, tourism, etc. So linking to this problematic, we can identify 5 challenges for Haiti in the environment. Biodiversity and forest. We need to stop losses in order to benefit sustainability, ecosystem services, water, food, oxygen, well-being, etc. This challenge brings us the opportunity to implement the Aichi target. Aichi target is a agreement is signed between countries in the world to put 10% of the territory as protected area. And specifically in the Caribbean area, we have the Caribbean Challenge Initiative, the CCI, a target that put 20% of the marine and coastal area as MPA, marine protected area. This is the opportunity to restoring tree land cover and effective management of protected area, reforestation, and also adopting effective measures to fight again over exploitation of species. The effect, the outcome, the possibility, if we do it, it's have agricultural resilience, increase or decrease food insecurity, increase food security, or reduce the number of people that are today in food insecurity, reduce effect also of climate change, and reduce the effect of major risk like the earthquake. As you know, as I show it, the earthquake was in the area, the geographical area of the earthquake is the most important area in biodiversity for the Caribbean, for Haiti. And then the consequences or the impact in the next month of this earthquake on biodiversity could be very, very strong, because rural people living near the protected area, because in this area we have the Parc Baradier Caïmite, we have the Abricot Jérémie Park, we have Grand Bois, De Mamel, et Lacawane, et Pointe-à-Bacou, Saint-Louis du Sud, et we can include also the Cavaillon, Aquin. All these areas represent the area with more protected area for Haiti, because linking to these specific needs to address the conservation of biodiversity. So if we have the effective management and of protected area, taking in consideration the livelihoods, the situation of the rural population living there's a protected area, living in the life of the fishermen in the village of fishermen, we can we can reduce the effect of the earthquake.
Dr. Hilaire, the moderator, François Chavenet, has some technical issues, but I, as guardian of the time, I would like to ask you, are you very frustrated when you have 2 minutes left?
No, it's not a problem.
Okay, two. I said two.
Okay, WAST. So Christine is going to tell you about the WAST. But if we work to respect the right of Haitian people to live in a healthy environment, we can have the citizen trust, the cooperation of the population. We can adopting responsible behavior and the education and communication through use of modern technology. In resilience, we are the poorest community. The poorest community are the main victim of a climate change effect. If you take the opportunity, we can ensure the economic activities stop migration to urban area. For the land use planning challenge, we can define and implement a spatial planning policy taking in account physical factors of the territory, major risk, soil potentiality, etc. The characteristic of the population and government responsibility. That can help to solving systemic and specific problem in the environment. To be done, governance. For me, this is the most important challenge today for environment, for all sectors in Haiti. Because the Haitian environment sector exposed the same governance problem than the other sector: corruption, lack of strategic vision. This is the possibility to implement a good coordination mechanism, a political way to strengthen governance as well as communication, transparency, social justice, subsidiarity, and modern technology to have an environment sector strong and armed to be faced to the structural challenges. Like conclusion, if we address these challenges, the contribution to a new country will be very significant. We need to note the necessity of a systemic approach, including some values like social justice, subsidiarity, cultural, using modern technology in communication, education, infrastructure, economy to serve the majority. We face in the world to a new revolution, the technology revolution. This is the most great opportunity to Haiti to take the way to evolution to show its value to the world. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. David Moilia. Without transition, we will move on to Gregor Hudson's presentation because of time issues. So, Gregor, please, can we have your presentation?
Thank you very much, Francois, and thank you, Dr. Hilaire, for that excellent presentation. I'm going to see if the screen is working at this point. Let's see. There we go. Okay, is that visible?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent.
Go
Thank you.
ahead.
Thank you very much. Yeah. So today I was invited, and I'm very honored to be invited with such an illustrious group to talk about ocean issues and solutions in Haiti. I am a coral reef ecologist by training, and I am serving as an advisor to the NGO in Haiti, the Reef Check Haiti. And I'm going to, let's see. Okay, so Reef Check Haiti is an NGO that started in about 2011 after the first really big earthquake. And I'm going to try and move this out of the way because this is obviously getting in the way there. The first idea was to do what an organization I had founded, Reef Check USA, had done for many, many years. And that's just train up local people how to do citizen science underwater surveys. So we selected two teams, one in the north, one in the south, to train up. And the problem we encountered is that most people don't know how to swim in Haiti. And so we had to teach adults how to swim, snorkel, scuba dive, and carry out citizen science surveys. So that took a lot more time than we were normally used to doing. Okay, now my screen seems to be frozen. Let me try this. There we go. So we carried out the first national underwater survey of almost Haiti's entire coast during 2011, and then a couple of years after that. And the areas that we didn't survey obviously are very polluted areas in front of Port-au-Prince and some of the other cities. And based on those surveys, we recommended to the Minister of Environment that there were about 21 sites, those little pink dots on the map all over Haiti, that were deserving of consideration as marine protected areas. At that point, Haiti didn't have any marine protected areas at all. And so it was really behind the times compared to the rest of the Caribbean. So just like everywhere else in the Caribbean, Haiti has three interlinked tropical marine ecosystems. As usual, it's the seagrass beds, the mangrove forests, and the coral reefs. And in fact, these are pretty complicated systems that are very, very interlinked. And I won't go into the details because we need to move quickly today. But as you can see by all the arrows, they're the humans up there in the upper right-hand corner. And there's lots of linkages between the mangroves, which are up on near the shore area. And then all the way down, you can see the lobsters down here, down to the mollusks and crustaceans, and then the large predator fish offshore. They're all linked together, and including birds up here. And if we actually looked into that coral reef ecosystem, there's a whole nother very complicated food web, between hundreds of species, and including all the way down, from the sharks all the way down to the little worms at the bottom, and bacteria and phytoplankton floating around in the water or actually on the reef itself. So the point is, it's just very, very complicated. You imagine each one of these organisms has several different life stages with different food that they need to eat, et cetera, and requirements for where their larvae are going. So looking at Haiti as a whole, the basic idea is that, an awful lot of the Haiti coast has coral reef on it. And there are some very deep water areas, these dark patches on this particular map. And so there is a lot of reef resource available. In fact, as it turns out, the pollution is really only a problem in front of these major cities like Cape Haitian and Lake High, and of course in Port-au-Prince Bay. But even in Port-au-Prince Bay, if you go over here to Trop-Aubin, about a few kilometers up this coast here, then you can find some reasonable reefs. There are reasonable reefs here on the southern point of La Gonave Island, and it's the same for other areas. So basically, the pollution is only within about 10 kilometers that it's really damaging. And erosion is also talked about a great deal in the terrestrial context, and it only affects about 20% of the entire coast. So most of the rest of the coast where there aren't rivers actually will have some coral reefs. So if we look at a specific case, and Jean Vimont had just mentioned Baradere, so there's Kayamit, the island, and this is about 60 kilometers of coastline. And you can see there's some reef, some barrier reef over here. There's lots of little patch reefs off to the western side. Inside here, there are lots more inner reefs, and then even reefs along the coast itself. And so it's a very complex area. The seagrass beds go for kilometers after kilometers south of Kayamit here. And we found a lagoon here, which we call Lagoon Bleu, which has the same jellyfish as in the Palau marine lakes, and it has exchange, underground exchange with the neighboring area. If we look a little bit closer at that with the, you can see the reef here, you can see the passageways through the reef and these waterways. Imagine the tide coming in and out of here and feeding into these mangrove areas, of course, fresh water coming in from the landward side, lots of mangrove here, and then lots of seagrass beds as well. So it's just, the point is very interlinked, very complicated ecosystems. So what is the economic value of coral reefs? Well, it's been estimated that 1 square meter in the Caribbean protects about $50,000 in property. And here's an example. Some of you may have been to Port Salut, and this is the old road that linked the area by the hotels, the Reposoir Hotel up to Point Sable, which is behind me. And you can see the road was completely destroyed because there is no reef protecting the coast in Port Salut. That is the problem there. And if we look at tourism, of course, when we speak of the Caribbean, we talk of beaches and tourism that are associated with reefs. It has a very, very high value in the hundreds of billions of dollars at the last estimate per year. And of course, the other side of the island, the Dominican Republic, has about 5.2 million visitors a year. And a fair number of those go snorkeling. And of course, we got to remember these days, tourists pay a lot of money to go see a live shark, a turtle, or a manatee. And there used to be lots of manatees and sharks in Haiti, and they are both pretty much all gone. Just a few months ago, there was a manatee caught in Port Salut, and it survived for about 10 minutes before it was sliced up and diced for somebody's dinner. Actually, pretty high priced for the meat of a manatee in Haiti. So, of course, most of us do like to eat seafood, maybe not manatees, but obviously the income that's brought in from catching lobsters and fish is very high, and it's considered to be about 20 tons of seafood is produced from a healthy reef in a year. So you imagine even at $2 a pound, that's a lot of money coming in. And don't forget what Dr. Hilaire was talking about. It's a carbon sink as well. And so the mangroves and seagrass in particular are very helpful in slowing global warming. And there's quite a few drugs that are already being marketed now that are used to combat HIV and cancer. So reefs are highly economically valuable, but one of those sources of value that can be overexploited is due to too many fishermen, such as this island just off the tip of La Gonave Island, that is just simply a fisherman's island. And unfortunately, when we are doing our underwater surveys using many different techniques, we see lots and lots of fishermen out there, and they're using very fine mesh nets, maybe 2 centimeters diameter, and the nets and lots and lots of fish traps, of course, spear fishing, and all the different types of fishing that you can imagine. And basically, every square meter of reef is being fished all the time. And as a result, unfortunately, the first things that you like to fish out of a reef are the tasty fish, the big fish such as grouper, and those are long gone from most reefs in Haiti. And unfortunately, they have fished down the ecosystem. And so if we look on the right side here, you can see what a normal reef, a healthy reef looks like in Haiti. And look at all the staghorn coral here. We were really thrilled when we found this reef actually in Francois Chauvenet's backyard, and absolutely amazing before Hurricane Matthew came through. And unfortunately, some 75% to 80% of the reefs in Haiti look more like the picture on the left, which is where the macroalgae have actually outcompeted the corals on the reef, because there's simply not enough fish that are the algae eating fish. And so the algae are able to overgrow, just like weeds on your lawn are able to overgrow the corals and take over. So there are fish on some reefs in Haiti. Unfortunately, there are very few that are larger than 15 centimeters. So up in the upper left-hand corner, we see parrotfish, the poisson paraquet, which are about 10, 12 centimeters long. They've never had a chance to reproduce. So they are caught immediately by those 2-centimeter long nets that are laid out on the reef, and they never have a chance to reproduce. Creole wrasse are common on some reefs, particularly over at La Gonave, and they eat plankton, so they don't really help out with the algae problem. So the one fish that is remaining that is not particularly so desired to eat as the poisson parakeet is the poisson chirurgien, the surgeon fish or doctor fish, and there are still schools of those. And so the last really remaining good reefs in Haiti are being preserved. They're right on the tipping point. They're right on the edge of collapsing, but they're still being held in place by these surgeonfish. There's still schools of a few hundred surgeonfish that are going around eating the algae and allowing them to survive. And of course, there are still some lobster in shallow water on some reefs. But when you go into the deeper water, that's where the reproduction is still occurring. Thank goodness Haiti has some very, very deep water, and so that you can see larger fish if you do go deeper there. So just a quick note that when Hurricane Matthew did go by, it completely wiped out the reefs in Francois' backyard, the Jeremy Abricot Marine Protected Area. And it was very, very difficult to find any living coral, even fragments left after that hurricane had gone through. It was extremely depressing to watch all that beautiful coral get turned into kindling. But guess what? This was a couple weeks ago on the reef behind Francois' house there in Jeremy. And look at this beautiful 1 meter diameter coral, and the other corals have come back as well. So a natural reef that is in good water quality and good healthy conditions, it will self-recover. And that's been about 4 or 5 years now, and it's already 1 meter diameter. There's lots and lots of staghorn coral there now. So that is the advantage that Haiti has. It's an amazing place with a lot of species that are endangered in the United States and the rest of the Caribbean. This species is completely wiped out in most of the rest of the Caribbean. I suspect it may have something to do with the lack of motorboats and the lack of oil floating on the surface of the reefs in the Caribbean. One of the things we found early on is that the kids have no marine education at all in school. So it's, to me, one of the largest problems in Haiti is the lack of marine education. We created a Blue Education program, and we have run about 300 kids through that pilot program funded by United Nations Environment Program down in the Sud. And of course, guess what? It's a lot easier to teach kids how to swim when you put a water ski jacket on them so they can't descend. They love it. We enjoyed it so much. Seeing them learn how to swim, how to snorkel, and learning a bit of marine biology as we go. So that program is ongoing. And finally, we worked with the UN agency, also with Ministry of Environment and ANAP, to draft management plans for several of the parks in the South. And it's an adaptive process. Okay, it's adaptive management cycle. You have your plan, you try out various aspects of the plan, you monitor and evaluate and try and improve your plan as you go. And of course, it has to be done that way to keep it constantly adapting and improving. So finally, we need a much more blue education, ocean education for students, and also government staff. Of course, the government people have come up through the system where they didn't get any marine education through school system or even in universities. Very few courses touching on the ocean available at universities in Haiti. And getting marine science into the school books for every kid is gonna, here it isn't, it's an island, and we really would like them to be able to see that. Government and NGOs can co-manage marine parks from the bottom up, including, very importantly, restricting fishing in some areas. And they need to be able to, we need to be able to provide new jobs for fishermen, especially aquaculture of tilapia and algae, which are really big in Asia and very, we don't see that very much in the Caribbean, but it's a tremendous solution to provide income, much better income than what the fishermen are getting now. A lot of fishermen are very frustrated. They would like to get out of fishing. So that's the introduction today. And thank you very much for listening. And I hope you will also enjoy the speakers coming up. Thank you.
Thank you, Gregor, for this very compact and intense presentation. I will let Philip move on with his presentation. Gregor, did you exit the presentation mode?
I exited from share.
Okay, from share. Okay, thank you. Philip.
I can see his screen.
Yes.
Philip, you're on mute.
Can you hear me now? Hello?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, Philip, go ahead.
I'm sorry about that. I've been talking. I thank everyone for being here today and the opportunity to talk about the work that we've been performing for the last 17 to 20 years on conservation of biodiversity. And as you see on the screen, you see two institutions, so Audubon Society of Haiti and Haiti National Trust. And I can't move my, okay. Well, the Audubon Society of Haiti is a nonprofit organization that was created in 2003 to tackle the challenge of conservation and focusing on bird being a flagship species because it is part of the environment. And it was created with a group of Haitian professionals that are concerned about the state of degradation of Haiti's environment. So we were very determined to work to better know what is at stake in terms of knowing the biodiversity and work to preserve it. The Audubon Society was named after Jean-Jacques Fougère Audubon, better known as John James. They should mute their microphone. Can I proceed?
Yes, Philip, please.
Okay. Well, Audubon Society was named after Jean-Jacques Fougère Audubon, born in Les Cayes in 1785. So, an Haiti National Trust is a non-profit foundation which mission is similar to the Audubon Society, and it supports the action of the Audubon Society, and it's inland and marine areas conservation, and it's focusing as well on rehabilitation and conservation of protected areas. And the aim of the Haiti National Trust is to financially support the conservation efforts for the Haiti biodiversity. You can see as well, our mission is to save and protect the environment and biodiversity of Haiti for future generation and conserve the biodiversity and natural ecosystem of Haiti through research, education, outreach, and partnership. Only if you know about something, you can educate about it, and you can define what to do to conserve it. A little overview of Haiti biodiversity. Biodiversity, the species is the amount of species that are living in a very specific area and their interaction between themselves and in the places, the environment where they're living. And Haiti's biodiversity, Haiti is a hotspot of biodiversity. And you can see on the screen a snapshot of what it is composed of. Vascular plants, over 5,000 species, it's 260 species of bird known, over 20,000 insects, and very high endemism in reptiles, amphibians, and mollusks. We have a very diverse habitat in Haiti, composed in pine forest, broadleaf forest, dry forest, and mangroves. You can see as well the natural covers of Haiti is approximately 1.5% of Haiti. You can see it's composed of agroforestry, forest. I'm sorry, it's in French. So I hope you understand a little bit of that. It's wetlands, mangrove, broadleaf forest, and I can't think about how to translate pâturage. Now,
Grassland.
Pasture.
Pasture. Yes, thank you. This slide shows the forest cover. And this forest cover is the primary forest cover of Haiti. And you can see over the years how it diminishes because of the natural degradation of the environment. And now it's estimated in 2016, when this was the study was carried, it was estimated at 0.32% of the primary forest left in Haiti. Just to give you an idea of what this represents, you see this is Bois Pagnol. It's a protected area. It's to be protected area. We're working on this area to establish the biological profile and have the government declare it a national park. And this, as you may see, it looks very degraded. And despite the fact that you see those patches that are, that's hosting that forest, it hosts all the biodiversity that you may. It's very rich, and as well, it is very endangered of extinction. Another site is Dead Buff. You may observe all these sites on our website of Haiti National Trust, because this site was highlighted after analysis of the forest cover of Haiti, where we discovered 14 sites that are in need of conservation and that host the highest concentration of biodiversity in Haiti. And as Jean Villemont said previously, most of the biodiversity in Haiti is hosted in the Massif de la Hotte. La Hotte, in fact, I've often call it a factory of species, because most of the scientists that visited there for the last 20, 30 years, they tell me that this place keep amazing them, because it's like it's keep making more species every time, whether it's from the flora or the fauna. Okay, so the challenge is, the cause of the degradation is extreme poverty, overpopulation, lack of education and social services. Everywhere you go in Haiti, whether it's at 2,000 meters or 1,500 meters altitude, in 5 minutes, you see a population coming to greet you. So these people, short-term survival needs far outweigh long-term benefits for conservation practice. Inadequate policy to address complex land tenure in which poor occupy public lands, and lack of land management, and weak environmental governance, which is created by political instability and total absence of state authority. Whenever you have a state representative, he actually asks the population to take advantage of whatever is being done, that usually, create more degradation of the area. Deforestation, clearing land to expand agriculture, charcoal production, logging for construction materials, cutting for daily firewood, overgrazing and invasive species, goat, sheep, cattle, feral cats, dogs, mongoose, rats, non-native plants. And this slide also highlights a little bit the cycle that we can observe. And as you can see, the mountain to the sea, we work very closely with Greg, because there is a very big impact of deforestation downstream. As you may see on the right of the screen, all the sediment goes to the sea, polluting the sea, the water, killing the fish. I think the slide is self-explanatory. That's what we would call a virtuous circle. And you see what that can obtain from a very healthy cycle. If you have vegetation, it allows the water to infiltrate the soil and create water downstream, protects, give clean water supply, and it has and also sustain fish population, as Greg was talking about. During the last 10 years, we have analyzed most of the forest cover of Haiti and established the profile of those protected areas that you can observe. Some of them are air protégé or protected area, natural protected area, and the other one are national parks. The difference is being, the protected areas are from the land to the sea, and the national parks are inland. We have 5 protected areas and 20 national parks. Macaya and La Visite National Park have been declared by national parks by presidential decree in 1983, and each about 10,000 hectares. I'm just letting this slide a little bit so you can observe. In fact, we've made a lot of progress working with SIAT for the declaration of those protected areas. But also we'll come to what it takes to really have a very efficient conservation of those protected areas. But it's nice to establish them. But if you don't commit resources, to protect them, there will be the good degradation will continue. We have 14 key biodiversity area. We investigated, we carried a lot of scientific investigation to establish, the amount of species that were found in the richest area in Haiti. And we have been able to establish 14 key biodiversity area, but we believe there are potential more of 33 to 36 in total to be established, and 10 important bird areas. So the strategy to tackle the problem of degradation is education and socio-economic alternatives, restoration, endemic species nurseries, reforestation, invasive species removal, conservation and preservation, long-term management of and maintenance of protected areas, community managed engagement in surveillance, continuing education and capacity building. And evidently all this, if you don't have the correct adequate financing to do that, you will not achieve your goal. And you may have seen on the first slide, Haiti National Trust with the Audubon Society, we have defined a strategy to better tackle the challenge of degradation. Because by establishing the trust, we are able to fundraise enough money to carry long-term conservation in those areas. The first action that we have done, and that is being carried right now, is the acquisition of that 279 hectares of land in Grand Bois, which is in the jurisdiction of Tiburon and Les Ivoires, where we have established nurseries of magnolias, which is a species that was thought extinct that we discovered. So we will continue intensely to work to establish those nurseries so we can restore with the same species that are present in those areas. Okay, so the thinking about the establishment of a trust came to our mind because after 10, 15 years of work, we have observed that despite the investment that being done by international organizations like IDB, USAID, World Bank, which represented in the past, I'm not up to date yet about this, but I believe it's nearly the same, 80% of the amount of money aid to the environment. And at the time, we have made an assessment of $500 million being spent over its life, a 10-year period. And despite this, there was no result on the ground. Haiti is being the most degraded country in America. So the Ministry of Environment budget is only 1.8% of the budget is allocated to environmental protection. So there is no way with that kind of resource, we will tackle the challenge of degradation. So we have gone ahead and created the Haiti National Trust. In fact, the Audubon Society also has been the first institution to create the Haiti Biodiversity Fund, which Jean Villemont is managing right now. So the forests are natural protection against climate change. It provides water downstream. It also offers ecosystem services to all the surrounding communities downstream. La Hotte, as I said previously, is a factory of species. So we're very concentrated there with our work, because just to give you an example, 70 species of frogs are found in the Massif de la Hotte, and 90% are endangered, of threatened of extinction. So the action that we think that should be done, we have identified the spaces, the richest space that hosts the biodiversity of Haiti, is to expand our activities to other biodiversity hotspots, maintain the national parks and the protected areas. When I say maintain, you have to have the right management project for that established, and also the budget to tackle, to be able to implement those projects and those programs, I should say. And act now, because it will be gone forever. Because if we don't act now,
Philip,
yes?
we have a time issue. Can you try to wrap up so that Christine can finish, please? Thank you.
Okay, well, and so what I would say is, well, to spread the word, we need to have big funding to do big things. So thank you very much. Hello?
Thank you, Philip. Christine, can you have your presentation, please?
Yes. 1 minute. Okay, Philip should stop his sharing.
I did.
Okay.
I'm suggesting that anybody who has a question can start writing in the chat, please, so we can try to answer them as fast as possible. Thank you.
Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you to the foundation for this great initiative to talk about our big challenges. Thank you to Philippe, to Francois, to Hudson, and everybody, to Hilaire for their great presentation. That would help me for my own presentation. The organizers asked me to talk about 2 topics. I will do my best to wrap it up in the time, because these are 2 large and complex topics. The first one is the cities of the Southern Peninsula between natural risk and potentialities. And the second one would be to present you the project we've built up with my group called Westec SA. It's a dry briquette plan as a quick impact solution to mitigate the environmental degradation. Okay, first of all, for the first topic, you can see it's to remind you how vulnerable all the country is. There's no places, if you look at the atlas of menaces and hazards in Haiti that we did after the earthquake, that there's no hazard. You can see how the South Peninsula is very, very exposed to 4 to 5 hazards. And an hurricane, just like Matthew, can be only one hurricane can destroy the vegetation and the biodiversity and that can be very hard to restore. But there was a lot of efforts that we've been doing after the earthquake. There's a lot of studies that are available. You cannot maybe trust me, but can you imagine that the Grand Anse area is covered? It's kind of the only area of Haiti covered by a multi-risk plan, master plan, but the actions after are not taken. If you go to the UNDP website, you will see how many efforts, how many studies that existed. Microzonage, all of the studies are already there. We have, just like I said, the cartography of multi-risk of the Grand Anse department. We have the microzonage, seismic microzonage of Lekai. We have a methodology guide to reduce natural risk and disaster for urban areas. We have this atlas that covered all the country. But as I said, we are still vulnerable. But at the same time, when you analyze the country as a whole, you can see that the challenge is very big, but at the same time, there's no reason for that, because the country is like, there's not so many big cities. For example, you can see in the peninsula, the South Peninsula, there's only 2 big cities, and those big cities are between 40,000 to 100,000 people each. And after, it's a lot of little cities that could be very well managed. The population are the density are very concentrated in Lekai, Jeremy, but Jeremy it's not so important in terms of population. But the last 20 years, we observed that the footprint, the real footprint of the cities increased. As you know, there were rural migration from the rural areas to the urban places. And a city just like Lekai has doubled its size. And as the population arrived, they established themselves in the most sensitive areas. You can see on this map all the areas in gray, and you can see they are on the riverside, on the seaside, etc. So on the mangroves and other very sensitive and natural sites. And also they establish themselves in very nearby the wild waste dump that you can see in every cities. So there's a lot of challenge, that the challenges that urban challenges that are already studied. You can see for Lekai, we already had this master plan for Lekai, which is very clear about the risk and how to manage it. You can see the new neighborhoods that are established on the peripheric areas that are sensitive areas, just like Ilya said, normally that spaces would have been non-edificancy spaces. And at the same time, we had some numbers to show us that the poverty, the extreme poverty and poverty are worse in the rural area than the urban area. So at the same time, they still have more opportunities in the urban areas than the rural areas. So we need, as we are making the urban transition, as we know, you all know that now we have more than half, 52% of the people, Haitian people, living in cities than rural areas. But the question is, for what kind of access to the city way of life, for what kind of city services, what kind of opportunities they have, access to land, what about the access to land tenure? So it's all, this is the biggest challenge, just like Philip, everybody before me said that the governance and the poverty needs to be tackled as the biggest risk, in fact. Remember the first map and look at this one, how the density is very high in the different, several cities. At the same time, they don't have, there's not a big footprint in when you see the photo interpretation of the cities, but at the same time, the cities are more and more dense. In red, it's the density. And how there's not a lot of public financing to manage the territories. This is the repartition of the public investment for urban development, but it's only written, but that doesn't mean the investment are made effectively. You can see for the waste management, it's only 1% of the budget that is dedicated to that. And at the same time, the private sector doesn't invest neither in the management of the cities through the financement of the collectivity, for example. And you only have for residential residential prêt, etc. But there's no money for the municipalities to tackle their issues. This is the area, Lekai area. You can see the footprint of 2014. So after the earthquake, how it doubled. And you can see that the urban areas are more and more in sensitive areas and agriculture lands. Also, you have the PTF, that's the financial partner for the government, multilateral and bilateral actors, stakeholders. They have a few projects, but look at the South Peninsula, it's like there's not enough investment in the urban development and management. Okay, I go further. So what we think the biggest challenges is to invest massively in all environmental projects, private and public, just like the project by Philippe Bayer present and also Reef Check, etc. We have to invest in more studies to complete our knowledge of the country. We have to invest massively in the city's facilities and housing program, private and public. We have to tackle poverty in rural areas and urban areas with production projects in green, blue, orange, and gray economy fields for quick and accelerating impacts. We have to invest massively in education field for the youth and especially in the training of future territorial agents and potential local leaders to establish a new kind of governance. We have to empower the civil society and a new class and build up a new class of elites to be able to fully play their role of counterpower and to lead innovation. We have to empower the state, of course, local states and central state and its institutions to deliver right services. We have, as I said, a lot of studies that are already there. We have what Hilaire was asking is to have long-term objective, middle-term objective, etc. We already have that in a lot of studies, just like Haiti Demain, PSDH, the Schéma National of Land Use Plan, etc. We already have that. We call for regional solidarities between cities, big cities, little cities, etc. We already have plans, master plans, regional plans, etc. What we need is more investment, more governance. For example, yes?
Excuse me, guardian of the time, how much longer do you need?
I think I need 5 minutes left for this part.
Okay, I give you 4.
Thank you, okay. And this to make a way that the potentialities, we have hundreds of thousands of potentialities to valorize. As you see, you can see this map. It's the map of heritage, on intangible heritage and tangible heritage of the South. What we need is to build up the resiliency so we could absorb the shock and restore very, very, very quickly, more and more quickly, the ecosystems and socio-economical systems and urban systems. Remember, Haiti is at the heart of the Caribbean. in the Caribbean, there's more than 30 millions of tourists, and they generate more than 32 billions of dollars each year. That represent more than 60% of the GDP of many countries of the Caribbean. That means that $1 equal to $1,000 new dollars in the Caribbean, and a lot of SMEs. We have more than 1,000 miles of coastline, unspoiled white sand beaches and as I said, thousands and thousands of potentialities, marine areas to protect, to present, to valorize. We are, of course, the hotspot of the biodiversity of the Caribbean. We have a strong history and very unique, very authentic that we can use to tackle the poverty in rural areas, just like urban areas. And you can see there's possibility. There's a lot of connections between other areas, other countries in the Caribbean that we can use to do multi-destination Caribbean projects in Grandas, just like the Chavnay projects. We have so many to valorize. As I said, we have to invest massively in green, blue, orange, and gray economy, so we could be more resilient and even choose another path. We can invest sorry, I don't know if it takes time. I don't know why. Okay, we can invest massively in housing. For example, that was a project for Luman Casimir, but sustainable housing project. We already have a lot of rules, but we need governance. I don't know why it takes more time. We need to tackle social injustice. Of course, tackle the mobility system, build new cities where everyone has their role. We need to tackle the energy issues, use the solar, use the mobility to create energy, use the waste. This is Jacmel, just to tell you that there's possibilities, that there's already a few projects that can be continued, to have resilient cities. Sorry. Okay, the way we can manage the Carrefour, we can produce energy, use innovation, etc. Okay, so what are the options to save the cities? We need to be the champion of the risk management. All the South could be a big lab for risk management, etc., and produce knowledge, produce goods and services all around the question of risk and disaster management. For example, we can have those kinds of project, innovative project and very attractive project that we can see from downtown. It's a tower that produces water from the air, humidity and the air, for example, and we use it to create link between the rural area and the urban area in downtown, and also use those spaces to create a new value, just like Ilya said, to show the children how to preserve, how to love, how to give value to water, to all the natural resources they have. Well, that's an example how to create links between the city to the highest mountain, connect the make Haiti a real island, make the sea culture arrive until the highest place in the mountains. How should I say that? This is the, I don't know how to say ravine in English, but for example, the ravine should be managed and restructured a way that, for example, there's water retention, so they can use all the river sides, you know, to do agriculture. This is, for example, some reflections we had with some other urban planners for the area of Les Palmes, Grand Goave to Petit Goave, and to show how we can have very resilient spaces. Okay, in conclusion, well, think about the territory very like a whole, favorize the diversity and cooperation between stakeholders, encourage learning, training, and innovation, reduce vulnerability, confirm that the specialities of the territories. Is it finished? Not finished yet. I have, so I'm done with this part. I don't know how to manage for the waste, but it's not very long. It's less.
I think
yes.
we went over time. I realized that each of you could have had a full presentation for the benefit of the audience. We have, unfortunately, have to stop. There were two questions in the chat. I don't know. I noticed that there were some answers that were given. There was a question for Philip. Philip, did you notice the question that you were asked?
I was trying to answer, but I think I answered the wrong person. But
can you say it loud for the benefit of the
I said that I tried to answer, but I don't think I succeeded because I answered to the wrong person. I mean, the question was asked by Valeska Moïse. No.
No, there's a question about.
Yes, it was for me.
It was for you. There's a question about the challenges of what kind of challenges do you have, Philippe?
Yeah, that's my question.
The first thing is the population when in an area where it's supposed to be. Again, our action is to conserve first, because what have been created by nature itself is very difficult for mankind to replicate it. We have to restore, yes, but we have to try to preserve what is left of our rich biodiversity. And as such, those places where we have been investigating how they have also a lot of people living, and they live from this community. So first, education, because they have practices, daily practice that are that are a threat to the environment, because they have to seek for economic alternatives to provide for the families and guarantee revenue. So, and then all that goes to the land tenure, because these people are not, they are occupants. They're not really owners of the land, because most of the land belongs to the state. And since there is no management, no land tenure established, so they just everywhere So that creates a big problem for conservation. I don't know if that answers the question.
Yes, okay, there's a question one question for Christine. Christine, there's a question for you in the chat. Can you answer it rapidly?
Let me try to see it first.
Okay, Christine, the question is, strategically speaking, what would you say is the most pressing territorial management problems to tackle? And we need to answer it very quickly because we are late and we need to wrap up.
Okay, can you say it again, please?
I'm saying the second question is, strategically speaking, what would you say is the most pressing territorial management problems to tackle? And after that, can you be quick because we are late and we need to wrap up?
Okay, to me, it's the energy issue for the, you know, that causes the deforestation. That's why we had this project that I would love to share with you. Maybe I could share can you still see my screen?
Yes.
Yes. Let me just show you this flyer. So with a group of friends, we made a project to have a plant of dry briquettes made of waste, but agricultural waste, to tackle the problem, the issue of biofuel. So they use charcoal and they use woods, any kind of woods to cook and for the dry cleaning, for the gildies, etc. So we need to have an alternative and other options that are the cost is competitive, so to tackle the problem of deforestation. So Audubon can do its work for the conservancy and etc. To me, that's one of the biggest issue. So we even made the math. We see that they cut like 40,000 trees each month to cover their needs for the cooking, etc., of urban areas. And we already have enough of solid organic waste to cover with all the needs. So it's equal. So we could not cut any tree anymore if we have like 20 plants just like ours in different areas.
Christine, with this final conclusion, we thank you for your presentation. We'd like to thank all the participants in the panel for their time and preparation. We'd like to thank Pascal for being the timekeeper and helping us in the background. I'd like to announce that the next webinar will be on September 2nd, and we'll be talking about business and economy. It's going to be a very intense and important session because, as you know, many of our problems in Haiti are tied with the economy. So there were very key numbers that have been said in these presentations. Billions of dollars are being made around Haiti. It is our challenge to tap into these resources and organize ourselves to be part of it. And there's enough resources, enough culture, enough sites here so that we can change the destiny and the fate of the population. I would like to thank everyone for the participation, and we'll be seeing you on the next seminar. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.